Yeah, of course. So Fight Night Rising is a four-game format. And so technically, with our scoring system,
Let's
we
be
do
friends
award top four
forever.
a lot more than the bottom four with a scaling of two in between. So as we can see right here, so three, four, five, six, and then when you jump over from bottom four to top four, it becomes 8, 10, 12. And then just for between first and second, we actually don't have too big of a difference here. And so Gunmay still can definitely catch up to natures. And the idea with this point system is that even though you may have eighth, you go first the next round and you can even it up and still come back after the four games.
And we've seen it happen. I remember watching Sphinx, a person in this lobby, get eighth, I think twice, and then win the two other lobbies, finishing in the top four. So it's definitely something that you can accomplish. Just because you're in last place right now doesn't mean you're not going to finish in first place a little bit later, though it will be an uphill battle. It's going to be, are you going to be cosplaying as Sisyphus? You could reach to the top and then fall right back down. Are you going to be Rocky on top of those stairs? It's going to be up to Dreamericaa and everyone who's below that top three to figure out a little bit later. But we also got a thank you for Becca Tilts for that raid. That's a huge one. Thank you so much. And welcome, everybody. This is Fight Night Rising presented DC, and he's going
And
to
we're back.
back, and we should be back here soon. Once again, thank you so much, Becca, for that host. We really, really appreciate it. We'll get you to those lobbies soon. I wonder if we can throw to a break real quick and maybe get
No,
this
I
lobby
believe
going.
it's okay.
All right, okay, all right,
Uh,
we good, we good.
but thank you, Becca, for the big host. And then also, for those of you who may or may not know, Becca will actually be in the Starside Invitational as well. So that's extremely hype. So after Fight Night Rising, and we see these Space Jam cybernetic players go ham, we'll be able to go over to the top eight NA players versus top eight China players, and we'll be able to feature Becca again on our channel. And we'll see how she does. So extremely hyped for that as well, and definitely taking a moment here just to fix our cameras before
Hey,
we hop into.
so it is going to go ahead, and we're probably going to be going on to our second game. No problem. Technology, we've been around it for so long, and for some reason, it always goes wrong when you least expect it. So, thank you for sticking to us, and then thank you once again, Becca, one of the OGs of TFT, supporting the channel. That means a lot, and good luck in the Starside Invitational. But in terms of comps and comp diversity, we definitely got to see some things that we expected to see. We saw some Chronos, we got that Irelia though, and like you said, let's talk about it a little bit. Irelia uncontested, and I think that also goes to show that Blade Masters aren't necessarily contested themselves, which would make it a little easier for that Irelia 3 to pop off. But I don't see that happening again in this lobby.
Potentially Cybernetics is popular, but yeah, six Blade Master is a composition that is not very popular in the meta right now. So we don't really see people going, "Oh, I cannot wait to get another Blade Master to fulfill my composition and synergy." But Cybernetics wise, we definitely will almost always see three Blade Master being played within that composition.
All right. And so into the second lobby, I'm really hoping to see something different like that Pikachu comp that we talked about earlier. Mort Dog also put out a post about that same comp, the double static shiv tier 3 Zaya. At that point, the whole board is probably covered in electricity. Something else that we also want to talk about is if you're wondering where Casa and Crowan are, they're doing their own thing right now. Crowan, once again, as we talk about the Starside Invitational one more time, we'll be competing along with Becca in that tournament. And Casanova is playing some Legends of Runeterra thanks to that wonderful partner program that they're doing there. We got some other really awesome TFT people doing some of that as well. Some good crossovers. We enter our second lobby of the night. First carousel already completed. We're seeing Gunmay right now, who's sitting in second place, starting with a Negatron cloak. In terms of tiers, where do you place that item?
So Negatron Cloak for me is fine just because you could build Quicksilver on it, and normally it's very popular in the meta. No matter what comp you run, is that you want this frontline tank that has Bramble, Quicksilver, and maybe a Drying Claw on it. So in general, Negatron Cloak is never a bad start, and it can help you with the late game with items such as Zephyr. And I am curious about Gummet if he would run Space Jam again as he did with last week's Fight Night and just playing Space Jam for a game straight or not. And now we
I
have oh sorry, yes.
No, no, I was about to say, The Last Dance with MJ just came out. Charles Barkley was on SNL last week. Space Jam is right on the tip of our minds. I'm glad it's here in TFT too.
Yeah, and then we're back at Dream Erica right now. So I'm very curious to see how she plays. Unfortunately, she did have kind of a bad start and she was a little greedy in trying to hold her gold until she could go for A and try to get that huge power spike. But unfortunately, that was a little bit too big of a risk and landed her on 8th place. So I'm curious to see one if she does get a better start or if she does get another difficult start, will she learn to kind of roll more at 7 just to try to stabilize, or will she take that risk
Mhm.
one more time and go for that 1st or 8th kind of gameplay?
Yeah, and so I think the big thing there was the decision making on where to actually invest came maybe a little too late as we saw her change her origins and her synergies quite a few times before committing to that high leveling and approaching 8. And then by that time, I think she had 1 HP. So it was just a little
She
bit
did.
too late. You literally have to win out at that point in time. As we get some good items here for a early chrono start. It's so funny to see everyone picking up Poppy. I've always loved Poppy in set one. Poppy was, I think, one of the more underrated units throughout the entire set. This time around, she's going to be Vanguard, and Vanguard got a pretty big buff for 2 of Vanguard. So that's why I think we're seeing so many early Leonas, so many early Poppies, because I think it was a 200 armor increase or something nuts like that for Vanguard 2.
Right, and Gunmay here actually has a very strong start as well. Poppy 2 and a Fiora 2 in the front line. So we see both Natures and Gunmay here going for that. Oh, and we see Sphinx actually level 4. So forget about these level 3 players going for the win streak. We see Sphinx committing to his econ and pushing for that level 4 and wanting to win right from the bat.
And I like the Ionic Spark. I think one of the better in-game items and works so much better than all the other iterations of that item, which used to be have the item, do some damage. Now there's some positional advantages or disadvantages on it. Oh, welcome, Buddha, to to the stream. Sphinx is going to go ahead and I think no, he won out on that one, and he's looking at some chronos too. It seems very, very common for people to at least invest in some chronos, pick up some early blitz cranks. When is the time to say I'm running this comp? When is it too late to make a decision otherwise? Because I think we saw Dreamericaa switch a little too late last game. Uh, where is that kind of halftime to say, all right, I'm gonna invest in Chronos, or I'm switching over to Space Jam, or I'm going cybernetics.
So with the current meta and how I feel about set 3, a lot of times players go in with kind of a set comp already. Normally, by the time you get to Krugs, you normally kind of already have a direction of what you want to lean towards. Obviously, flexibility is one of the greatest skills you have in TFT. So between stage 3 and early stage 4, you still have the option to change. With Dream America's situation, she didn't really pivot until the end of stage 4, and that was kind of crucial with taking a little too much damage before she was able to pivot and create a finalized comp. And we
Things.
see Nature's here looking very excited, hitting all the upgrades in the world with a Poppy 2,
Wow.
Leona 2, and then also a Caitlyn and TF2.
Oh man, anytime I see someone with a beard, I get really jealous because it's never happening for me. But anyway, back to TFT. He's gonna win streak. He's going to feel good about this. Not only is that Giant Slayer on that Caitlyn, even though Giant Slayers don't find as much value early on as they would later because of the percent health difference, it's still going to matter, especially with these Vanguard comps with that extra armor. It's going to cut through that a little bit more. Uh, but here we're just look at how beefy these 2 Vanguards are.
Yeah, and then curious enough, he did slam the Giant Slayer onto his Caitlyn. So I'm curious if he would have tried. Oh, never mind. He sold his Malphite. I'm very curious to see if he ends up going for a Jinx composition since Giant Slayer is one of the best items on her right now.
I think it's also one of the biggest bait items early on. Like I said, it gets stronger on the late game as people have more health. It's one of the biggest counters to the mech, and if there's a big mech player, you pretty much have to have that Giant Slayer. But putting it on early, you don't get as much value out of it. Is that just me overthinking it a little bit, or would you rather save those components for something else? Because a sword and a bow go into a lot of really great items. For example, like a GA could have been used waiting for a vest for this carousel.
So Giant Slayer in general is a good offensive item for a late game, as you mentioned. So it definitely there isn't a harm to slam it early, especially if you're in Nature's position and you want to maintain that win streak. Then slamming Giant Slayer is a lot of times a correct choice. It's just Giant Slayer is a little bit more particular to a few comps. So there are comps that kind of makes Giant Slayer a little awkward for a late game, but that's min- minuscule in comparison to the early game win streak that you're able to achieve from it.
Awesome. And remember, win streaking means money, my friends. And that's what you want in this game and in real life. Unfortunately, I usually don't get money in either, but these players are really good at managing those economies. Something that to note, though, is we actually haven't seen much hyper rolling or donkey rolling or whatever you like to call it. Disguised Toast put out something a little while ago that was saying, you know what, it's going to be back. We might actually see some egg roll again. Do you think that these players are just playing things that are a little bit familiar from last patch, or is it maybe was it too bit of an early take to proclaim something like donkey rolling to come back?
I mean, the idea with donkey rolling is through starting a lot of your one cost unit. I think that's a little bit too much of a risk to take after only one day of the patch to experiment with. But there's still hyper rolling comps in general, like we saw last game with mech infiltrators and also with Space Jam with Gunmay. So I think the concept of rolling is still definitely very safe to play and three star units, but although I'm really excited and wish we could see constantly the Pikachu comp or a three-star Poppy coming in, I will be frank that I even if I was in this tournament and I would love to meme and play those comps, I would be too scared about trying that approach because it means going all in after Krugs to try to hit those 3 stars.
Well, and it's
And
going all in on something that's not been proven to work even.
right, there's experimentation, and yes, we have seen the Pikachu comp win a few games, and we also saw yesterday in Challenger meta that there has been people winning top four with a Poppy 3, Leona 3, running 4 Vanguards and Star Guardians. So there's definitely validation to seeing those type of comps work. But again, those are one or two players excelling and trying to figure out a new comp versus, hey, I saw this. Is this the time to try it out or not?
Yeah, and if no one else in the lobby is adjusting, it kind of makes you more comfortable to not adjust as well. But you could technically be awarded by going something different and throwing something else into the mix. It's kind of like a holy bomb in the game Worms, if you're
So
familiar.
Gunmay may actually be going for that comp that I'm talking about. Yes, he is, I believe. So the composition here is actually a three-star Poppy, Leona, Zoe, and a TF. And we see that he sold his bench and he has some TF and Poppy. So taking a risk for sure, just because I haven't seen this comp that often, but I know from yesterday that it was starting to get popular within the high elo rankings. So I'm very excited to see this comp and how well it does. And I'm actually
Oh,
hoping for oh my,
that's a lot of
that's a
money.
lot of gold for someone who's going to hyper roll after this turn, so which is perfect
Oh,
situation for him.
I wonder if he's going to be able to get 6 gold somehow. Because if he's able to get to 50 at the end of this round, that'd be absolutely
If it was
insane
treasure
for
trove, there
him.
was gonna be a lot more chance, but unfortunately.
In terms of itemization, what are you looking for in that comp specifically? Since
Oh,
it is new, what kind of items? If I'm trying to build it at home, what are you looking to build?
actually wanna wait, is Nature's going for that composition as well? Probably not, his is a little different, but going back to Gunmay, I'm really excited because he's doing his roll down right now, and we
Oh,
see
he
that
got it.
he's the three-star Poppy, yes, so perfect. So, although Poppy is probably one of the most important units to three-star from the start, because you're gonna slam Bramble on an Ionic and a Dare tanky item if you can, and Bramble can actually 1 versus 5 for like the longest time. So I'm excited. Unfortunately, didn't find too much other ones. Only another Zoe and also TF, but at least he hit the Poppy.
And the unfortunate thing for him is while the Vanguard comp is really good in terms of armor, he's going up against some magic damage on the other side. That Ari almost pulling it out for a final there, but this Poppy is probably going to be fine, especially against a counterpart that's one lower level. The TF is there, but that was a little closer than I had expected, especially with such an early level 3 Poppy. And what that does too is since Poppy is a unit that a lot of people want, it takes 9 Poppies out of the pool, and it's going to make it way harder for everyone else. And he's going to be sitting pretty here already completing that for him as we get some more Star Guardians. And now we got some Chronos, we got some Vanguards here as well. After that Vanguard buff, lots of people running those 2 Vanguards.
Yeah, for sure. And then we see Nature scouting to see what Gummay's up to with the new comp. And he is running 4 Chronos, so I'm very curious to see if Nature's set on that path for KL, or he just doing this for the mid game spike, but you're going to pivot into something completely different.
Man, nature is so reactive to what's going on. You know exactly what's going in his head. So it's good to for us as casters to see if things are successful, if things are surprising. And right now, things are going according to plan. Is I don't believe he loses a unit throughout that entire fight. For Chrono's doing well. Let's talk about Chrono a little bit. We've mentioned the changes. We haven't gone specifically into them. Why is Chrono different, and is it better than its last iteration, Rissa?
So with Chrono, the interesting part actually is something I discussed about, and something I didn't think about. I was actually talking to Crowan about this, where I always thought that Chrono was better late game, right? The idea that late game, technically, the fight should last longer, but if you really think about it, the late games don't last longer. It's usually the early game when you have your little vanguard slowly poking each other that you really get those chrono buffs incoming. Versus late game, you have like a 2-star Seraph just blowing the entire board up, and the fight's over within like 4 seconds.
Uh huh.
So because of that, I feel like chrono in general is very good for the mid game, and especially now with KL being such a strong carry, then as well as the late game, it's just a very solid transition throughout.
Yeah, and I think that was one of the things that it was missing in the last iteration was it just took too long for you to get the proc, but now that it stacks right away, it's really good for characters like Hale, and that's what pushes the Chrono into a potential top 1 or top 2 comp is you got that carry finally, right? You got someone who can delete a team that can 1v3, 1v4 if they choose. And now we're getting into what I like to call the meaty carousels is when those 4 cost units start popping up. And we're seeing those swords that these are some good offensive choice items. A good chain vest opportunity there if someone's looking for a GA or a Bramble. The Poppy really wants it. So you're looking for Candyland comp is what it's called with the Poppy. You're looking for those defensive items. So it's really fun for me because I've always wanted to see TFT develop a comp that was defensively focused, right? Where it's kind of like a war of attrition that I don't feel like we've had since Demon Bear in set one, which feels like years ago. But now you kind of see it with this Poppy comp, and I'm really excited to see if this is something that can actually imprint itself in the meta. Because looking at the chat too, people are excited for it.
Yeah, and we see that actually in this particular lobby, there's just poppies everywhere this time. There's a 3-star poppy, and I believe 2 or 3 other players also is holding on to a poppy just to show that it's a really good tank for your early game. And we see that he's getting closer to 3-starring his units, going from just missing 2 more TFs and a couple more Zoes as well. So I'm excited to see this comp, and he's at 65 HP right now. So I'm curious to see if the spike happens right after neutral rounds, or if he would push for level and try to hit the 4 vanguards or not.
Oh my god, this is so great to watch. It's like literally running yourself into a wall over and over again, and you're not even making any sort of progress. Some good stuff. That's fun to watch. We'll check back in a little later as we look at the rest of the lobby. Right now, we're looking at Adreh, who finished third in that last comp, as someone on the other side was also running a Poppy with a Ionic and Bramble. So Candyland, a little bit more popular here. You ask, and you shall receive, friends, as we are seeing some variations in the meta. But right now we've got a Dre with 87 HP. Looking at some cybernetics, you're the expert here. You've only got the one Leona, the 1-star Leona. Is it something? Oh, and we do have a stacked Jinx. What is this telling you?
That is gonna be a Brawler Blaster comp. It seems quite the commitment with those 3 items on the Jinx, and you can see that he's holding on to the Graves to proc the Blasters later, and also some Malphite in case. So we see here right now, though, it's not the best idea to just throw in the Malphite because 2 Vanguards is ultimately stronger still in this round. So he's holding off on those and just letting those Vanguards tank up as much as possible before it gets to the mid to late game where it falls off. And we see that Adreh was actually on a huge winning streak. He did lose, unfortunately, 1 round in between, but prior to that, he was on a 3-2-4 win streak.
All right. And something I definitely want to do right now is check in with Dreamericaa. Wow, have the forces switched here as Dreamericaa finished 8th on the last round, is sitting in first place right now, working with some Mana Reavers and Blade Masters. Part of me thinks that this is what she wanted to do last game, but was unable to because a lot of these units that she's running right now were contested by Gunmay with that Space Jam composition, but already some investment with that Irelia.
Right, and it seems like she has a very interesting style where even in the last game she was running Darius and Jace from the early game just to get that a little initial Pyre Gold, and it seems that she may be doing the same tactic where she transitions into a cybernetic build again.
You love your cybernetics, and you're seeing
I
the
do.
the dispersal of those items as well. So this is where cybernetics can potentially give you a little bit of trouble, as sometimes you have to slap an item onto someone that isn't as min-maxy as you would like, but it's good to just get that extra damage and that extra HP, especially in her position, staying on top. Now it's time to win streak and stay on there. And when your portrait's on fire, that means you're doing a really great job. Now we're looking at the current bottom of this totem pole right now, which is final. And this is our first Star Guardian comp that we've seen today.
Final, that was a really rough roll, not gonna lie. I mean, he went for it just because he's at 38 HP and it's getting to be kind of the spooky time where you definitely want to get your Pyre Spike. But the rolls should be enough to stabilize him maybe one or two turns, but generally wise, he's still fairly weak.
Yeah, and the Soraka is supposed to be there to help you stay alive, and I believe the one he's missing is Nico. He's got two on the bench. Does he have one on the field right now? No, finally does get it. That's going to be your quote unquote tank. It feels weird. It's always weird for me to see Nico's get tank items because the unit isn't tanky looking, if that makes sense. But Nico is really good in terms of getting that tankiness out there, helping that Poppy keep that backline alive so your Soraka can ult in the end. But still, a little bit of a hard time just now getting those tier 2 units for Star Guardians for a comp that I don't think anyone else is running right now, as we get a 3-star TF for Gunmay as he finally gets to 6.
And then we also going back to Narcus here, as I mentioned before, Narcus is kind of known as a cybernetics or chrono KO player. And right now he has the option to go for both. He has this Mana Reaper, he has the Irelia as well. So I'm very curious to see which one he would end up pivoting towards.
Goodness gracious, this Poppy. This Poppy is out of
Gummay's
control.
composition is I love it, honestly, just because I it's something that is new to the meta and goes along with the new patch just because of the fact that you can reroll for your one cost a lot easier than before. And this is the perfect example of a new comp being born from a new patch. And I love innovation like this. I think that is fresh to the meta, unlike where it's just simply, oh no, we're just going back to Rebels since they got a buff and it's just going to end up like patch one again.
Well, the cool thing about innovation too is now with the world tour, quote unquote, coming out for TFT, the competitive opportunities for a lot of these players, I think pushes innovation and pushes the counterplay and that the infinite rock paper scissors that TFT has. But right now, there's just so many people going after Poppy, but one person already has that Poppy 3. As we're looking at Gunmay once more, 3-star, tier 3 units, the ones that he needs, but the other ones are still pretty weak with that one cost. So a lot of the
Interestingly enough, Gumay's one weakness is the Star Guardian compies he's running Vanguards, and these are all girls who does magic damage to your Takam, so
Yeah, and that's actually something that we talked about the first time they played. Well, Gunmay was able to take the victory in that situation. As time goes on, the Ionic Spark is going to get a little weaker. It's already at max strength with that tier 3 Poppy, but that magic damage is going to rip right through them. So maybe a potential mystic option to buff up the defenses of that Candyland comp, and it just makes it even tankier. And I'm excited to see if that transition might end up happening, if it's worth it, or going a different way. Maybe getting a little bit more damage might be how to do it. I'm not as familiar with Candyland as I'd like to be, but it is something that I'm seeing here right now, and it's really cool to see. Like you said, that innovation is awesome. So when you're in a position like that, when there is a lot of magic damage going the other way, like you said, it's a weakness for this Candyland comp. Do you invest in those mystics or do you keep rolling for other things?
well, in this particular lobby, Final is actually in a very tough spot. Yes, he hit his 6 Guardians, but he rolled it all the way down to 0, and he's nowhere near 3 tiering any of his units. So chances are Final may have a very difficult time trying to like top 2 or top 3. Whereas Scummy is in a fairly strong spot against most of the other competitors, being the only really bad matchup is against Final. So there's the idea of simply waiting Final for Final to die and not having to worry about that. Or if you see that Final does get a Pyre Spike, you do have to consider starting to put in some defensive, maybe mystics in order to counter that.
All right, as we're seeing the Syndra start throwing those balls all over the place. I'm not going to say that phrase again, but we're going to go ahead and see Final actually take the victory here against Sphinx. You said that there was some matchups that weren't very good for him, but why was he able to overcome Sphinx in that situation?
So two things here is that believe he only had one item on Sona, and maybe I was mistaken, but he does have a Seraph and the Chalice on Sona now, and this is actually kind of more of a battery Sona comp. And I have lost this comp just because of that Sona just constantly healing over and over again and getting rid of any debuffs. So I'm actually curious on this fight now. Overall, I feel like with Star Guardians, you do have to get some 3 stars in order to go for that power spike, but maybe just the Sona and those items are going to be enough because it's going to be just constant healing 24/7.
And along with the other mystic involved, it's going to help with the other Star Guardian comp as well as the Soraka finally getting some ults off. That Chalice is so strong on the Sona. You're seeing how valuable it is because they're getting mana revered right now, but it's compensated by that one item. Everyone else getting some extra mana every time Sona ults, along with the Star Guardian trait.
Yeah, and we saw here that Sona got to ult 5 to 6 times, and in between those times where she's trying to heal up, we have Soraka helping her out, saying, "You need a little bit more time to get your ultimates to go off. I got you." In the in between healing, so I think those two combination, I think I could be proven wrong that maybe Final doesn't need to go for the 3 stars to push for that damage just because of the fact that he has so much healing.
Oh man, and Sona used to be stronger, my friend. She used to cleanse CC, which is nuts to me, especially since you could build her the same way. But now I feel like it is a little bit more balanced, but is acting as that battery, is giving everyone else that mana, along with like the stacking of the Star Guardian trait. That's some good synergy there. Something I definitely want to try once I get to play some TFT after this, as Misfortune missing her ultimate will never get old for me. Um, one of the one of those set one things where Misfortune unable. At least it was for Krugs this time around. Sometimes you got to report her, make her learn her lesson. But we're seeing some rebels here. We got Brawler Blaster as well. Cho'Gath needs one more. That's one of the units I think that just has to be 2-star in order to be valuable. The difference in power level I think is huge.
One thing that is very interesting is that we saw that Sphinx chose both times to not upgrade his MF. More waves was offered for the misfortune. And I think that's a concept that even I struggle with. If I see an upgrade for a unit, I almost always will buy it just because I'm like, why not make my unit stronger? But
Mhm.
it is fair that there are times if you don't feel like your MF is going to be your carry, it's such a there may not be a point to upgrade it. So I'm curious to see what his logic was going through that.
I think he may have missed it because he used the Nikos on the Misfortune to get it to level 2. Maybe I don't know why, if that was intentional or not, but did use the Nikos on the Misfortune to get that Misfortune to tier 2. Jinx, as you're seeing, competitive for a lot of boards right now. There's a Jinx with double Giant Slayer on another board, and I think with this new Candyland comp, Giant Slayer is going to be almost mandatory, as it feels like Poppy has almost as much beef as the mech at this point.
Yeah, and then we see that he did hit his TF3 with IE, Shojin, and also Morelos. I'm very curious to see what the damage chart would look like. Would the Poppy take over? Would the TF take over? We shall
Uh,
see here.
TF with IE looks really odd, but remember the ultimate for the TF isn't that great. It's really good to add debuffs like Morello's, but it's not going to be doing a ton of damage. And is this ZZ Rock going to be able to take this Jinx out? The answer is no. Giant Slayer a little bit too much for them, and unfortunately for this Candyland players, I think the lobby has countered it quite well so far. Giant Slayers all around, and it's going to be hard for that Poppy to go up against those Giant Slayer Jinxes as well as our Star Guardian players.
There was a little bit of a position difference for the last one too. I think because of which unit it grabbed for the Blitzcrank and the Jinx is what kind of made that fight a little bit easier for them. But if it was otherwise, I think Gunmay had a very good chance of winning that fight because Jinx was left with 1 HP, and then between a Poppy through of those items and just a Ezreal, I think the Poppy would have won.
Interesting. So we'll see if the positioning changes for these other ones, and I think that Blitzcrank surprised just a little bit. But we got Dreamericaa. I love seeing this kind of turnaround. There is running that cybernetic. Now this time
Ooh,
is going to have the
so
Irelia,
close.
but red buff is going to be it. And the trap claw on Jinx is something that you're going to be seeing a lot of. Quicksilver did get nerfed, so you're probably going to be hoping for a Trap Claw instead. Plus, it's extra CC, and sometimes it's really good to bait those Blitz hooks with those Trap Claws. Looking at these items, what are you looking at right now?
So I need to see what Adreh's comp is, but one thing for Dream Erica that I wanted to say is that she was at 50 gold. She has the top 2 HP in the lobby, and she's only about 30 experience away from going to the next level. So I'm very curious to see if this is going to be another level 9 and maybe another Aurelia 3 because she is in the spot to pull that off.
And gets that infiltrator talons. That's going to be spicy. I'm really excited to see what that's going to be because that will combo with that echo and will get a second infiltrator on the board. And attack speed is so good just in general. Not only is it more damage, it's also a quicker ultimate. And now you're seeing infiltrator Irelia. That is going to push some at damage.
So it shows you level there, which I do like that play because it kind of just strengthens her in guaranteeing her for that top 4, just to put in the Valkyrie, or not Valkyrie yet, just Blasters for now, but ideally want to take out the Zaya for a KL in order to hit Valkyrie as well. But other than that, there
Oh.
is also, oof, the Gunmay Poppy 3 comp coming in, which is actually very strong against this comp, so I'm curious to see how it fares.
I think that Irelia a little too strong for the
Yeah.
comp. The attack speed buff you saw there that I think really matters because it's more attacks for the IE to proc, and then with again, I think that's an Ionic or is that's a Last Whisper. So with that Last Whisper, we saw how strong that IE Last Whisper combination was in the last lobby. We might potentially be seeing Irelia take another lobby this time around. Will be Dreamericaa because it doesn't seem to be contested really anywhere else, which is good for her. But we do have to worry about those giant slayers because I think that's one of the things Irelia can be bursted down, but you got to do it quick.
Mhm. And then Last Whisper is actually one of the best items for me now on Irelia, just because Bramble is so popular that sometimes if you build double, triple IE onto your Irelia and you encounter a Bramble, it just feels extremely bad. So I think it's very crucial to actually have the Last Whisper now with how tanky the meta is. And then we have Gunmay also against Adreh here, and we see that Poppy tanking it up and pushing all the damage through, but then it's against the Jinx as well.
I think the Poppy's going to have it.
Yep.
Enough damage was done earlier on, but you're really seeing the struggle of that Poppy when it's up against percent damage or magic damage. It's not that auto win. It's kind of looking like a top 4 comp to me right now because Gunmay does have all those 3 stars, but is also at 3 HP. Maybe the lobby is just a little bit too good at countering them. We are at 7 players, 3 of them under 10 HP, 1 HP for our friend Narkez Gummy with 3, Sphinx with 9. So all 3 of those players could potentially get eliminated after this NPC round against Kane. A good one here, Quicksilver. It doesn't seem like the players have cared much about the buff, 5 seconds shorter on that item, but it still seems to be pretty valuable for a lot of these players.
It's still definitely a very valuable item. I think the nerf was justified, but it definitely feels awful with the nerf struggling a little bit. And we saw that final did get kicked out. And although Mana Printer Sona, I believe, is very fun and strong, I do think that you have to 3 some of your units in order for that comp to excel.
Oh, it's the
That's a lot of red
gloves.
buffs.
Yeah, that's a lot of red buffs, and that is for our friend Gunmay and our tanky item and our tanky champions themselves. It's going to be really interesting to see how much value this Shogath gets out of that Giant Slayer. Sometimes with the Thieves gloves, you get these weird item combinations, and you're like, but maybe. Especially with a rapid fire cannon, it might actually keep this Cho'Gath in a safe space, but because it's still frontlining, it will get that one ultimate off. And Sphinx is running away. Sphinx is scared, and Sphinx the boy is gonna be out of here, my
Oof.
friends, and he knows about it. The Asol gonna be a little bit too much to overcome. He's going to be finished
Ooh,
in
Gummy
single.
also. Narcus, Sphinx, and Gummy all get knocked out this
So
turn.
all 3 players that we mentioned under 10 HP get knocked out in the same round. That goes to show how strong our top 4 is for this lobby. We've already got there. This game's feeling like it's going a little bit quicker than our last lobby. And Gnard Dawg, Dreamericaa, all people who were in the bottom, I think, the bottom 6, 8th, 7th, and 6th, now in the top 4 this
Yeah.
time around. I love it.
Adreh and Natures actually did fairly well in the last game, so their points will be higher than the other two players. But Gnard Dawg and Dreamericaa, as you mentioned, did bottom for the last game, and so these are definitely going to help them come back, per se.
And that means that the third game is going to be crucial for all of these players.
Oof.
Basically, the way this lobby has come out is everyone still has a chance, I think, to win. Adreh, though, feeling pretty good. He's been the most consistent, like, and Nature's also pretty consistent there, so they might develop a lead. But that top four spots for anyone in this lobby definitely still open as we're seeing these players running out of money, they're running out of time and maybe some opportunities. Force of Nature definitely helping out Adreh here,
That's
but
the
not really
worst
finding
feeling
anything
in
that
his
he
shop.
wants. Yep.
Yeah, so KL2 in his shop. It's always the worst feeling when you roll and you finally hit something and you just one gold off.
And there's nothing you can do about it. We're at that point in the game. We got some hair tussling. That means that someone is anxious, my friends. Will this Lulu, though, be able to keep this misfortune safe? It looks like for now, it has been able to take aggro away. Really nice polymorph again to keep that misfortune alive. And I think they might be able to
Ooh,
do it. Yes,
he
they
gets his
will.
one gold for KL.
He gets his 1 gold for Kale, survives 2 HP, Dreamericaa 4 HP, Nature's 14, and at this point in the game, 14 HP might not even be enough as we see some Dragon Claws on the board, some Bramble Vest, Titan's Resolve, some good items, and, yeah, and a spatula for good for that could be good for some of these players. But we have our top four lobby. This is going to go really quickly. Let's go ahead and go through everyone for the producer. Let's go ahead and go through everyone's team comp real quick before this next round goes through. Gnard Dawg is going to be in first place. Nature's running Rebel Starship. We've got Gnard Dawg running the Brawler Blaster comp that for some reason I can't drive ever. I'm that person in the left lane that's very slow. Dreamericaa is going to have her Rebel Valkyrie
She's
comp or
six
cybernetic.
cybernetics,
Yeah,
yes.
six cybernetic as well. And Adreh is going to be rounding it out this time
So
with
we see
Rebel.
here that we had two Brawler Blasters along with a Rebel come all with a pretty stacked Jinx. And one thing that I find very curious is that both of these players have stacked their Aurelion Soul, which did get a change and buff this patch. And there's been very mixed reviews so far regarding Aurelion Soul. Oh, IJ just got taken out by the Aurelion
Ooh,
Soul
look
2.
how close this is, everyone. Look how close this is. Sorry to jump in, but we've got 16, 14, and 4 HP. This has probably got 2 PvP rounds max left to go. Who do you have your money on based off of the comps that we see?
So it's like a rock paper scissors shoot right now. We saw that Dreamericaa did beat Nature's BF with her Aurelia, and then we saw that Nature's have beaten Gnard Dawg before, and then Gnard Dawg has beaten Dreamericaa. So it's just like a battle who's the matchup is. But Nature's does have the Aurelion Soul 2, which she did not have last time he went against Dreamericaa. So we see that Aurelia jumping around doing work,
Oh,
but unfortunately gets taken down by the big Acel 2.
yeah, and I think maybe the infiltrator talent's backfiring for her. It's still not over, but the Acel's going to be a little bit too much to handle, especially with that Exodia type build, with that Dragon's Claw and that Warmog's armor. Really good turnaround from Dreamericaa. You really got to give props to her by not giving up, by placing eighth in that first lobby. Top four this time around, 16 HP for Gnard Dawg, 14 for our natures. And we're coming up onto Shelly. You know, it's so funny because I thought that the last game was a little bit slower than this one, but I think just this one's been so close. I don't think we made it to Shelly in that last lobby. This one is coming down to the wire, Rissa. Like you said, rock, paper, scissors is the name of the game. It seems like scissors was just cut off. Who you got now? If you were to put $1 on the winner,
$1
one
bet. The
one
risks
whole
are so
dollar.
high.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we're in esports. It's 90%
You're
of my
right. You're
income.
right.
So, if you had $1 to give, who
So
would?
Nature's actually just hit both his Acel 2, which he already had, and now he also hit a Lulu 2. So with those two criteria, I would have to say that my bet is on Nature's. I feel like the win condition for Narda was if he was able to econ enough for either a Jinx 3 or to have really perfect items for that misfortune to slam through. But I think my money's on Nature's here, so we'll see.
This is probably the last fight of this crazy lobby, a lot of back and forth here. We got a lot of turnarounds, we got some ultimates, and we've got a Master Yi with 2 Titans resolves, and he's just gonna eat bullets from
Oof.
that misfortune. It's still pretty close. The Ezreal, though, gonna help out, and it's going to be Nature's taking the W. That's good for him. That's a lot of points for him in terms of being in that top 3 to be invited back again. But after 2 lobbies, things are still up for grabs for everyone. We'll get those point totals for you in just a second. But I had a great time watching that. We got some new stuff. We got some classic stuff. We got Rebels. We got Asol with Morellos, which is something that is terrifying for me to see. Defensively focused builds on Asol as well. Anything that's surprising to you through that lobby?
Yeah, for sure. So the ASOL, see how hard it can carry with just the tank items, was very interesting for me because back in the first patch, you ran Morellos, you ran Sarah, so you just kind of threw like all the tier and AP items on them. Versus where the Dragon Claw actually, I believe, was very crucial in keeping that ASOL alive as long as possible and just really spreading out that damage. So Rebels being back is actually very healthy this time, which I think is a very nice thing to see. Versus the first patch where everyone's just like Rebels is so toxic. What is this?
Well, it's like you said, it's really really good to see a comp like that come back and not it did not feel overbearing. It definitely felt like that Asol was vulnerable to a certain type of situation, but unfortunately, that did not happen to our second place. So Nature's feeling good, 13 points for them. And let's talk about Dreamericaa for a second. She's been kind of the one to watch over these last 2 lobbies because I think as a cybernetic player, it seems like that's what she favors. That Aurelia 3 on someone else's board just completely neutered any chances of a potential top 4. But this time around, a lot less contested, and we're really seeing how a cybernetics player can be successful in this lobby. You're our cybernetics player on this casting desk right now, so is that really fun to see? Did you expect it to maybe do a little bit better? Is that Irelia 3 the win condition? If you don't have it, is it a top 4 comp?
So for me, cybernetics is definitely a top four comp, especially uncontested and during the early mid game. You can just save so much health from it, and if you play it right, then it's almost guaranteed top four. But yeah, I do struggle with winning first place with cybernetics unless I do hit that Aurelia 3. So other than that criteria, I would say the only difference, she played very well. I think that landed her very safely into top four. I would have taken a riskier play when she was at 50 I believe she was in about 50 HP with 50 gold left, and she decided to push for level 9 before neutrals round in order to put in misfortune. I would have greeted out 2 more rounds because I felt like I was strong enough then, and then try to push for 9 and roll down for Irelia Dury.
All right, so there's definitely some adjustments that even our top 4 players can do, and that's one of the greatest things about this game. It's the fact that even if you win a lobby, you can think back and figure out things that could have gone better. It's very rare to have a perfect game because there is some RNG in this game inherently. But I've loved the fact that we have been seeing some really good variation in team comp. We got Candyland, which is a wonderful name for a comp, and I hope it never changes. But the other thing we haven't gotten though is a special galaxy. So I really hope at least
Yes.
throughout the next couple games that we get a galaxy because that can really turn things on its head. Sometimes players are just so standard in the way that they play. They've min maxed a certain way for certain lobbies that when you throw in super cluster or when you throw in treasure trove, which is I think the one we all want.
Yeah.
And for those of you guys at home who don't know treasure trove, every single NPC gives an orb. No matter what, every single one gives an orb. So tons of items, tons of Nikos probably at the same time. So I'd really love to see if every player gets the items that they want, right? And potentially running comps that they want, how that would end up. That'd be really intriguing.
Yeah, and then we will be hopping into a short break, but until then, just looking at the point system real quick, we did see that Nature's hit first place twice in a row, so he's in an incredibly great spot. Adreh also went top for twice, so these are all great players. Gunmay doing really well as well, and we see that the other players also, as you mentioned before, players that may have bottom four before, like Dreamericaa, went to top four this time, and so evening out the scores is very close, and I'm excited to see when we return how the next 2 games will come and go. Hopefully, Final and also Narcas can do a comeback and get some first places in there. And maybe we can have a very exciting matchup. But we will be entering into a short break, and we'll see you soon for the last 2 games.